Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing on with Punk's Not Dead, and we are reading chapter 9 today. About an hour and a half later, Katsuki's phone went off. He scrambled out of bed at a speed he would normally be embarrassed about, but his mom had been coming in every 20 minutes to ask if Kirishima had answered yet. And if that shit happened one more time, he was going to scream. Again. Luckily, it didn't look like that was going to happen because he had 3 new texts from Kirishima. Shitty hair, 11:58. Gonna go out on a limb and say this isn't a good kind of meat. Shitty hair, 11:58. My shift's done at 6, but I'd be showing up at your house with wet hair in my work uniform. Shitty hair, 11:58. If you give me till 7, I can shower so I don't meet your angry mom smelling like pool. Me, 11:59. She's going to be pissed no matter what. If you come over sooner, it's done faster. Shitty hair, 11:59. Okay, let me ask my mom's. Katsuki realized after about 3 minutes that he was sitting on the carpet in his own goddamn bedroom and staring at his phone, which was, to put it mildly, fucking pathetic. So he got up and moved back to his bed instead. He opened up Gmail so he could stare at academic emails he had no intention of answering at the moment instead of his text chat with Kirishima. Finally, after nearly 10 minutes, he got an answer. Shitty hair, 12:08. They said fine, but they want me home for dinner around 7. All things considered, Katsuki would have expected them to want him home immediately, but he wasn't about to question if it got this over with. Me, 12:08. Yeah, okay. Shitty hair, 12:09. See you at 6-ish. Still with the fucking exclamation marks. Mom! He called. Normally, she would pretend she couldn't hear him unless he came downstairs, but she'd been breathing down his neck for an answer since they got home, so he could probably get away with it today. What do you want, brat? He'd been right. Kirishima says he'll be over at 6. What? School finishes at 3. Katsuki sighed. He works till 6. He heard grumbling and the sound of feet coming up the stairs. His door opened a few seconds later. Tell him he's staying for dinner. Katsuki rolled his eyes. His mom's want him home for dinner. His mother raised her eyebrows at him. Oh, you can sleep at his house, but he can't have a meal with us? He got his goddamn nose broken this morning, and they haven't seen him all day. I don't think that's fucking unreasonable, Katsuki said. Watch your tone, she snapped. What time do they want him home? Around 7 o'clock. His mother let out a short, frustrated sigh. Fine, make sure he comes straight here after work. Yeah, whatever. Katsuki flopped back down onto his bed, staring resolutely at the ceiling until he heard his mother's retreating footsteps. Then he got up and shut the door, because she never fucking did it herself, and tried to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do with himself for the next 6 hours. Time passes. He ended up rereading Endless Night. When he'd first dug it out of his closet, he tried to make up excuses. He didn't have any homework, and YouTube, newer books and articles weren't holding his attention, so he might as well try a familiar story to pass the time, right? That was all true to a certain extent. It was a comfort book, as much as he hated admitting that. But the underlying reason was Kirishima was reading it, was nearly done reading it, actually, and Katsuki had every intention of milking that common ground for all it was worth while he still had the chance. And sure, that might have been even more pathetic than the floor thing, but it's not like anyone could prove he was doing it. By 4, Katsuki had finished Endless Night and moved on to Shield of Shadows. He only got about 5 chapters in before the jittery impatience he'd been fighting off since noon started creeping back in. He decided that he was going to keep reading on the front porch. He'd been trapped in his room all day, and the fresh air would at least be different. It also meant that he was guaranteed to be the first person Kirishima ran into when he arrived, and that he wouldn't be ambushed by Katsuki's mother, which was a definite plus. Being outside helped for a while, but as it got closer to 6, it got harder to focus, until Katsuki was more glaring at the book and trying to force the words into his head than reading. Finally, Katsuki heard the sound of tires on pavement and looked up to see Kirishima's car pulling into the driveway. He was relieved for a second, then realized a part of his brilliant plan that he hadn't accounted for, which was that he was still holding the book and Kirishima would know he'd been reading it. A small, desperate part of him wanted to throw it into the gardenias before Kirishima could notice, but the rational part of him, the one that understood that was fucking stupid, ended up winning out, and instead he just closed it and laid it face down beside him. "Hey," Kirishima said, stopping at the foot of the stairs and smiling nervously at him. Another thing that Katsuki hadn't accounted for, because of, well, everything else, was that when Kirishima said he was going to be coming with wet hair, that meant his hair was going to be down. And now he was faced with hair down, smiling, backlit by the sun, Kirishima, again. It was just as bad as it had been on Saturday, except he couldn't run away this time. And he'd had time to get used to his feelings, so there was no reason for them to be hitting him this hard. And yet...
"You weren't kidding about the pool smell,"
Katsuki said, even though Kirishima was a good 3 meters away and downwind. Kirishima, luckily, didn't seem to notice, instead letting out a small noise of distress. "Oh shit, seriously? I can't really smell anything because, you know..." He gestured at his nose, still bandaged and swollen. "But I tried rinsing off in the pool showers so it wouldn't be too bad." Ah, fuck. Katsuki had apparently severely underestimated how nervous Kirishima was. He probably wasn't used to people disliking him, given how much of a fucking people person he was.
"It's not that bad, shitty hair," he said. "They won't notice."
"Okay," Kirishima replied, apparently appeased. "Sorry for freaking out. I don't know. I know that the whole point is for them to not like me, but I still want them to. It's stupid."
"Yeah, it is,"
Katsuki said before his brain-to-mouth filter could kick in. Kirishima looked crestfallen for a second, so Katsuki rushed to continue.
It's not stupid to feel that way. You just have no reason to. Their opinions don't mean shit."
Kirishima laughed, and Katsuki saw some of the tension release from his shoulders. "All right, anything in particular you want me to do?"
"Keep your hair out of your face so they can see all your piercings."
That made Kirishima laugh again, and he even made a hideous snorting noise that Katsuki desperately wanted to hear more. "Whatever you say, man," Kirishima said, still chuckling to himself, as he pulled an elastic off his wrist and tied back his hair in a low ponytail. "Good?"
"You'll do,"
Katsuki forced out, before he could do anything too embarrassing, like voice his actual feelings on the ponytail. They were overwhelmingly positive. He picked up his book, stood up, and opened the door, then stepped inside, trusting Kirishima to follow him. As soon as he got the door shut, his mother started yelling from the other room, "Katsuki, your delinquent is late!" Kirishima, who'd been in the middle of taking off his shoes, shot Katsuki a concerned look. Katsuki just rolled his eyes.
"He said he was done work at 6, not that he'd get here at 6.
Instead of a verbal response, he got approaching footsteps, and Katsuki gestured for Kirishima to hurry up with his shoes before she arrived. He managed to get them off and get himself upright by the time his mother reached the entrance, and as soon as she was in sight, Kirishima had his customary personable grin in place. "Hi, Mrs. Bakugou," he said, and he did a decently good job of masking the nervousness in his voice. Katsuki's mother looked him up and down like she was fucking Terminator scanning him. When she was done, the corner of her mouth pulled up in a sneer. "What happened to your face?" "I got punched. A couple of times, I think," Kirishima replied, laughing nervously and scratching the back of his neck. "I meant the piercings." she said then, after a short pause where she inspected his face again. And the teeth. Before Katsuki or Kirishima could respond to that, Katsuki's father did the one useful thing he'd ever done in his life and appeared from deeper in the house, took his mother by the elbow, and started guiding her towards the living room.
Why don't we let them into the house before we start asking questions, Mitsuki?
It's an easy question to answer, she said, allowing herself to be led, otherwise undeterred. If you ignore the nose, it's clear he has good bone structure, and I want to know why he's choosing to ruin it. Kirishima looked almost shell-shocked, and it was clear that whatever he'd been expecting, this wasn't it. Katsuki, in a moment of impulsivity he was sure he'd regret later, reached out and grabbed Kirishima's wrist, like Kirishima had done for him in Nezu's office. It seemed to snap him back to reality, enough that he looked over at Katsuki and smiled again, a bit more strained this time. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's probably only going to get worse from here,
Katsuki said, because he wanted to be reassuring, but he wasn't a fucking liar. Good to know, Kirishima replied, and when Katsuki started after his parents towards the living room, he didn't try to pull away. His parents had taken one of the couches, leaving the other open. Katsuki wasn't about to ditch Kirishima to face the Inquisition alone, so he sat down on the empty couch and pulled Kirishima down beside him. So, his mother said, picking up as though the conversation had never been interrupted, since I'm not allowed to ask about the piercings, can I at least know why your hair is dripping on my sofa? Kirishima checked the end of his ponytail to see if it was actually letting off water, which was a rookie mistake, but Kirishima's mothers were actually nice, so Katsuki couldn't really blame him. I work as a lifeguard, so I was in the pool recently, he explained once he determined that she was just fucking with his head. Katsuki's mother raised her eyebrows. Lifeguard, huh? You work with kids? Kirishima nodded and looked like he was about to say something, but she cut him off before he got the chance. And you think getting into fights is setting a good example for them? Katsuki groaned.
I already told you he got...
Shush, brat, I want to hear it from him. I didn't start the fight, ma'am, Kirishima said quickly. I defended myself, but I would never attack someone. There was a long silence while his mother gave Kirishima another appraising look. Fine. What do you want to do when you graduate? I want to be a paramedic, Kirishima answered immediately. And Katsuki watched as his mother's eyes narrowed, calculating. That wasn't good. Katsuki's tutoring you in math, isn't he? Yes, he is, Kirishima answered, seemingly unsure of why she was asking. And you think you can be a decent paramedic even if you're struggling with high school math? She asked. Mitsuki. His father started, but Katsuki was louder, and he was angrier.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything? He's not going to have to know pre-calc to treat someone, and his biology grades are nearly as good as mine.
I'm just saying that I might not want my life in the hands of someone who nearly failed a core course, she said coldly. It's not that far into the year, Kirishima said, quietly but firmly, and I'm getting help to make sure I don't fail. I think that counts for something. His mother looked shocked that Kirishima had responded for a second, and Katsuki had never wanted to kiss him more than he did in that moment. Rather than concede the point, however, she continued grilling Kirishima about his grades, his appearance, again, and even his family. Kirishima took it all relatively in stride, but Katsuki could see his grip on his shorts getting tighter with every thinly veiled jab she sent his way. Katsuki wanted to do something. Hold his wrist again or yell at his mother to just fucking stop already, but there was never enough of an opening. Finally, a timer went off in the kitchen and his father spoke up.
I said that earlier. It's 7 o'clock.
He explained, getting to his feet and disappearing into the kitchen to turn it off.
Thank fucking God,
Katsuki said under his breath. Language, Katsuki, his mother snapped.
He's heard me swear before, hag.
Kirishima stood up before they could start fighting in earnest and bowed to Katsuki's mother, then his father, lingering in the kitchen doorway. It was nice to meet you both, he said. Well, at least he has some manners. his mother grumbled, and Katsuki grabbed Kirishima by the arm and dragged him towards the door before the comment could turn into a lecture. Katsuki loomed over Kirishima until he'd gotten his shoes on, then forced him outside as quickly as humanly possible. As soon as the door shut, Kirishima's shoulders slumped forward. Well, that was a nightmare. Katsuki snorted.
At least it was good practice. My grandmother's worse.
Dude, your family gatherings must be exhausting, Kirishima groaned.
Yeah, well, you hit me with your car. This is payback,
Katsuki said, trying for a joke. It seemed to land, at least earned a small smile from Kirishima. Geez, when she asked how we met, I thought that vein in her jaw was going to burst. Katsuki grinned.
I think if it had, this would have been worth it.
Yeah, Kirishima replied, and they trailed off into silence for a second. I'll see you tomorrow? Kirishima asked evenly. Katsuki nodded.
Unless Nezu spontaneously decides to extend my suspension, yeah.
Cool. Bye, Bakugou. Kirishima gave a small wave and another somewhat dim smile, then walked off to his car. Katsuki waited until he was out of sight before going back inside to face his fate. I didn't like him, his mother said as soon as he walked inside.
I figured you wouldn't,
Katsuki muttered darkly. His mother ignored him. Honestly, Katsuki, you're at one of the best schools in the country. You'd think that you could find someone. She trailed off, gesturing vaguely with one of her hands. Respectable.
Respectable?
Katsuki exploded.
Fucking respectable? That's your complaint. He's determined. He cares about people, and he's a good person. That's pretty fucking respectable.
He knew what she meant. Of course he knew what she meant. It was the thing that had first made him drag Kirishima into this whole scheme. But he was too pissed off to care. And it made him fucking furious that someone could look at Kirishima with his huge smiles and ridiculously kind heart and think that a few piercings and his stupid fucking hair made him less respectable. And it made him even more furious that when this all started, he'd done the exact same thing. Don't play dumb, Katsuki. You know damn well what I meant. His mother snapped back. If you want to bring him to the wedding, that's your choice. But telling the rest of the family you're gay is going to be hard enough when you've found someone worth settling down with. So I don't think...
You know what?
Katsuki interrupted.
Fuck this. If I like Kirishima, what kind of person do you think I'm going to settle down with, huh?
His mother made an impatient huffing noise. If you gave me some time, I could find someone, Katsuki.
Not fucking happening.
Well, I know I could do a better job than you did when you were left to your own devices.
I don't fucking care who you find. I'm in love with him.
His mother was staring at him, eyes wide and shocked, and Katsuki felt the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. Fuck. He hadn't meant to say that. He didn't even know if it was true yet. And if it was, he definitely didn't want the first person he told to be his fucking mom. He stood perfectly still, locked in a silent battle of wills with his mother. When she finally started to speak again, Katsuki reacted instinctively, opened the front door, and walked out of the house. This wasn't going to end on its own, so he was going to fucking end it himself. His mother called after him, but she couldn't chase him down without causing a scene, so as long as he moved quickly, he was home free. When he couldn't hear his mother's yelling anymore, and he felt like he had a decent head start, he texted Uraraka, "Me, 1919. I'm coming over." She responded immediately, which was rare for her, but Katsuki figured the world owed him a bit of good luck at this point. Jigglypuff, 1919. Are you staying? Me, 1920. Yeah. Jigglypuff, 1920. Okay, see you in a few. Time passes. Uraraka was working on a project when he arrived, sitting at her desk with a video call open on the ancient desktop computer. She'd left the window open so he could get in without disturbing her and angled the monitor away so that he couldn't be seen climbing in. He should probably thank her more often, considering how much bullshit he'd put her through in the last month, or at least let her know he appreciated her friendship. God, that was fucking sappy. Kirishima and his squad were definitely a shitty influence. Katsuki couldn't really do much while Uraraka was working except lie still on her bed and dick around on his phone, which is what he ended up doing. It wasn't a great distraction, but it passed the time. Eventually, Uraraka said her goodbyes and shut off the computer, turning to Katsuki with a look of resigned sympathy on her face. Is this a talk about it problem or a leave me the fuck alone problem? Katsuki sighed and dug the heels of his hands into his eyes.
I don't fucking know,
he finally answered.
I just needed to not be in that fucking house for a while.
Uraraka hummed sympathetically. You know, I'm planning on moving out next year, she said. I've been looking at places near the schools I want to apply to. A few of them have good medical programs. Just, if you wanted to get out of the house more permanently. Katsuki had definitely considered that. Moving out as soon as he fucking could, but it wasn't cheap. Especially if he was going to university at the same time. Doable if he lived with someone else, but he hadn't thought he'd be able to find a tolerable roommate.
We haven't even started applying yet,
he said instead of answering. I know, and I'm definitely not going to force you. I just thought I'd put it out there. She paused and shot him a wry smile. You know, since you basically live with me already. It wasn't a cure-all, obviously. He still had to go back to his house eventually and deal with Kirishima and the wedding. Hell, this wasn't even a concrete plan. Just a vague possibility, but it was something. And it made the tension he'd been holding in his shoulders since noon relax, just a little.
I'll think about it.
Time passes. There was a routine to spending the night at Uraraka's. She never told her parents he was there, and whenever he hadn't eaten, she snuck food that wouldn't be messed up, rather than just having him eat with them. Only one of them ever showered, and she'd started keeping a futon under her bed in the first year of middle school, so she didn't have to sneak out into the hallway closet. Katsuki was pretty sure her parents knew he was there anyway, but since they never said anything, they kept the pretense up. By 9 o'clock, Katsuki had the futon set up, and by 9:30 he was out cold. He didn't sleep very well. He rarely did when he stayed at Uraraka's, but even though he knew to expect it, he was still miserable when Uraraka shook him awake the next morning. I'll meet you outside, she said, like that wasn't what they did every single time. She was gone before he could snark at her, though. Fucking morning people. Katsuki had a backup uniform hidden in her closet. Since he didn't stay over on school nights very often, it hadn't been replaced in a while. So the shirt was too small, but it was still better than going to school in regular clothes, not to mention regular clothes that he'd slept in. His bag being at his house was more problematic, but there was no way in hell he was going back there until at least that afternoon, so he'd figure something out. Once he was dressed, he went out the window and down the tree, then loitered by the trunk until Uraraka came out of the building's front entrance. We need to replace that uniform, she said, digging a granola bar and an apple out of her bag and handing them to him.
It's not that bad.
You've grown a lot since last year, Bakugou. You look like you're about to pop a button. They sniped back and forth during the rest of the walk to school, which had the benefit of waking Katsuki up and making the half-hour walk a lot less tedious. Once they got to Katsuki's locker, they parted ways, and Katsuki got 5 whole seconds of peace before he was accosted by Kaminari. Hey, man, we're eating outside today. Just wanted to make sure you knew.
Why the fuck did you come all the way over here to tell me that?
Katsuki demanded. Well, Kaminari drawled, since you refuse to give anyone your phone number, we have to resort to analog communication.
Kirishima has my number.
Kaminari snorted. I'm not going to use your boyfriend as a relay service when I can just walk down the hall and talk to you, dude. He tapped Katsuki on the forehead. Under the willow tree by the picnic tables, 12 sharp. Be there or face Mina's wrath.
Don't you have your own fucking wrath?
Katsuki asked, batting his hand away. Kaminari shrugged. Yeah, but Mina's is scarier. See ya! And with that, he was gone. Katsuki briefly considered what the likelihood that he could move all his locker's contents into his desk so people couldn't ambush him there anymore was. Given how full it was, probably not high. Might be worth a shot, though. Time passes. Class was fucking tedious. Trying to get through his work while half asleep was already a pain in the ass, but doing it without any of his usual materials made it infinitely worse. By the time lunch rolled around, he was so desperate to not be in his classroom anymore that he made it halfway to the cafeteria before he remembered Kaminari's instructions from that morning. Part of him wanted to not go out of spite, but he'd gotten used to eating with Kirishima and the Stooges, enough that he couldn't barely remember what eating on his own was like. Which was going to make the rest of the year weird, but whatever. He'd gotten used to eating with them, so he could get used to eating without them. Not yet, though. Given the spectacular vagueness of Kaminari's directions and the size of UA's campus, it took Katsuki a while to actually find the damn tree, and by the time he did, everyone else had beaten him there. Sero spotted him first and waved him over, which got the attention of the rest of the group, who cheered when they saw him approaching. Ashido even wolf-whistled. "Looking good, Bakugou," she said. "Finally decided to show off your pecs?" He flipped her off, which only served to make her laugh, and made sure to kick Kaminari before sitting down next to Kirishima, who was staring resolutely at the ground. The back of his neck was red, and Katsuki was fully prepared to lecture him about sun safety when Kaminari's voice pulled his attention away. "What was that for?" he whined, rubbing his arm and pouting at Katsuki.
"Learn to give better directions."
"Hey, I give fine directions." "You absolutely do not," Sero interjected, and the two started bickering, which kept Katsuki entertained until Kirishima nudged his shoulder and handed him something. It was a Tupperware full of what looked like stir-fry. "Uraraka texted me," he explained, "and we had some leftovers, so—" He trailed off. Katsuki stared at the container for a long moment, then grunted out a short, "Thanks," and started eating. He wanted to be mad at Uraraka for telling Kirishima that something had happened, but he didn't actually know how much she'd told him. For all he knew, she'd just said that he'd forgot to bring a lunch. Whatever, he could be mad at her later. For now, he was just glad he got to eat. The stir-fry was good, but Yuka's cooking had yet to disappoint him, so he wasn't surprised. He finished it fairly quickly, then passed the container back to Kirishima and lay down, with the vague idea that he should try and take a nap so that he would actually absorb something during afternoon classes. He ended up just staring at Kirishima, since his head was right by Kirishima's leg. He really did smile a lot, especially when he was talking to his friends. "You okay down there?" he asked after a bit, leaning over Katsuki with an amused look on his face, still smiling.
"You have a scar on your eyebrow,"
Katsuki said, instead of responding to the question like a normal person. He hadn't noticed it before, but it was obvious now, and he reached up to grab Kirishima's face so he could turn it and get a better look. Kirishima laughed awkwardly, but submitted to the manhandling without complaint. "Yeah, I fell out of bed when I was a kid and hit it on the corner of my bedside table."
"Idiot,"
Katsuki said, too tired to try and fight the fondness out of his tone. It didn't matter. There were people around. He could play it off. "Shut up." "Oh, stop acting grumpy about it," Ashido said, barely looking up from Sero's hair, which she'd started braiding while Katsuki wasn't paying attention. "You wouldn't let us pierce over it." "Hey, we all voted left," Kirishima protested. "Some more vocally than others," Kaminari said, giving Kirishima an accusatory look. Katsuki jabbed Kirishima in the arm and got his attention.
"What the fuck are they talking about?"
We decided to get matching piercings in first year, Ashido explained. The only one we could get Hanta to agree to is an eyebrow, because he's boring. I don't like needles, Sero said defensively. Kaminari raised his eyebrows, clearly unconvinced. The multiple tattoos say otherwise. It's different, Sero insisted, trying to turn his head so he could fight Kaminari properly, but Ashido smacked him and told him to stop wriggling so she could work. Kaminari then made it his mission to try and annoy Sero into moving again, which was entertaining until Ashido caught on and smacked him. Katsuki realized with a slight pang that he was going to miss them, all of them, not just Kirishima. You falling asleep on us? Speak of the devil.
Trying to, but you fuckers are loud.
Hang on, Kirishima said, shifting around so Katsuki's head was in his lap, and Katsuki didn't know what the fuck Kirishima's plan was, but he was a lot less relaxed than he had been a second ago. And then Kirishima's fingers were running through his hair, and that was somehow even worse. But like hell, Katsuki was going to admit that because it was also so nice. And this was a lot for 12:20 in the afternoon on very little sleep. Toshi used to get night terrors, Kirishima said softly. I remember this helped her get to sleep after. Katsuki grunted, rather than responding properly, because he didn't trust himself not to say something embarrassing, and closed his eyes. Oh, gross, Kaminari said, but Ashido quickly shushed him. Katsuki decided she was his favorite after Kirishima. He drifted off quickly after that. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me for Chapter 9 of Punk's Not Dead by Wrunic. Our next piece will be Chapter 10, and we are really getting close to the end now, guys. There's only 12, so it's winding down, and I hope that you guys have really enjoyed it so far. I do love this fic. It's another one of those fics where I forget how much I love it until I reread it, and then I find myself so giddy in the moment when, all of the things are happening. Like I said in the very beginning, fake dating fics are great, and I love them so much. I'm always up for suggestions of some if you've read and they're good. I have probably already read it, but I will still always take suggestions for things to read. All right, friends, we've babbled long enough, so I hope that you'll join me for the next one. And if you do, I'll see you next time. Oh my god. Oh, now I'm rapping in my head now. Okay.